Okay.
It is May 8th,
7.
May 7th, 2015, and I have Phil Hurry here with me. Real pleasure, real honor to be able to hang out with him. And the first thing we're going to do is I explained to Phil and John, his son, who's here, that I would never use any of this information unless I would have the permission of his family. And is that all right with you, Phil?
Right.
And I'm going to ask you just some questions in general, and then we're going to get back and we're going to talk about our other situation. But I'm just going to ask you some general questions.
Okay.
Phil, what is your full name?
Philip Henry Hurry.
Now, how'd you ever get that name? Because I
My
have a
father-
similar name.
My father named me because he and Judge were just like that, you know. And he got Philip Henry. He got Henry. It was a Bailey, Paul Bailey. So he got me in the Dorses and the Bailey boat. Philip was a Dorset, and then Henry was a Henry Bailey. I was Paul's brother. We were very close to the Baileys, you know.
How old are you now, Phil?
This month coming up, I'll be 87. I mean, yeah, 87.
And what was your father's name?
John Donlin.
John Donlin
John
Hurry.
Donlin Hurry.
And was he born in Clemens?
No. Well, it was in that area, yeah, right around that, yeah. Between Clements and Chaptico,
Where were you raised as a boy?
Clements. Right where I
Was that your family's farm right there?
yeah, father's farm. He ran that store, see, for years, till he got sick, and then he quit the store and went in the farm. And then he started feeling good, so he got out there, yeah, got feeling good.
How old was he when he passed?
He was in his I think around 84.
Did he have any brothers and sisters?
He did, no, he didn't have none living, no.
And do you have any brothers and sisters?
Oh, yeah.
How many do you have?
Well, I don't have it now, I don't have, yeah, I got one sister. One
Sister.
sister, Virginia. She lives in Clements.
How many did you have? Brothers?
10.
There are 10 of them.
6 boys and 4 girls.
And I guess you all, how far did you go in school?
1 year of college,
Where did you go to high school?
Morgan Brown.
And that was co-ed back then,
Yeah.
Margaret Brown High School. And when you finished school, did you do a lot of work on the farm? Or?
Well, not a lot. I've got 2 farms, but I didn't do a lot of work on the farm. I went into selling wholesale whiskey.
And you did that for many years, didn't
Yeah,
you?
23 years, I believe it was. I was in that.
What was the name of the company?
Churchill.
Churchill. But it wasn't reliable Churchill then, it was just Churchill, wasn't it?
It was just Churchill. Churchill, I think he's bought all of them out there, all with McCarthy Hicks and Cronline.
How old were you when you got in the liquor business?
I was 80, right around 59, 58, 59, something like that.
When you got out of it?
When I got in it,
Or when you got in it?
yeah.
But what did you
I
do?
stayed in it for about 22, 23 years.
What did you do before that?
Before I was in the whiskey business,
Yeah.
what did I do?
Ran Black Steel.
Yeah, I ran the Black Steel Restaurant. I built that and ran that until I got out of it and was sold it.
You know, my father used to take us up there on Friday nights, and they had you had like a little cafeteria on the right side, like a, you know, it was a soda, you know, they had the counter and the booze, you know, where you eat. And then he would give us a thing full of nickels, and then he'd get lost for like 3 or 4 hours, and we'd be running around, you know, and just throwing quarters away and whatever, how we could. But that place used to be packed.
Packed.
I mean, I remember there were like 300-400 people a night in that place.
On the weekends, we were packed. And when I left there, Sonny Tucker went in there. He was stayed for 6 months. It went right on down there. But we had good business, really good
Oh.
business.
But what year was that? That was in the 60s, wasn't it?
Yeah, 60s, yeah.
Because I must have been 10 years old, probably like 1965, 66.
And it was about 4 or 5 different people went in there. The Chinese girl, what was her name? She used to run a restaurant up there. What was it? What was her
I'm
name?
not sure it was.
Huh?
I'm not sure.
She ran that Chinese restaurant. Everybody knew her. She went in there, she didn't do anything, stayed 2 or 3 months.
And Sonny Tucker, he eventually opened up where Birch Drive-In is. He opened that little drive-in when he got out of
Probably
Box
did,
Steer, I
yeah.
think. Because I remember moving him down to Sarasota, Florida, back in 1982. But now, were you and Joe Weiner partners in the Black Steer?
Yeah.
Yeah. And one night, I walked in there, because, you know, we went up there a lot. That was like the ritual Friday night. I remember going in this back room where I wasn't supposed to be, and it was a whole room full of like quarters, half dollars, nickels. And there had like 2, 3 people in there just, you know, counting all this money. And that was like, I think that's where they got the saying where Joe Wine and Phil Hurry said they didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, but I'm certain if there was a million nickels to rub together in that room, I used to.
I remember unloading the slot machines.
Joe and I got one.
Yeah. See, I mean, I sort of knew that, but I really didn't. So, now what did you do before the Black Steer?
I think. I must not have been doing much.
Yeah. Well, where'd you go to
Bowden
college?
Brothers.
Where'd you take the 1 year of college at?
At the seminary down here.
Oh, down at St. Mary's City. Okay.
You were at Bowman Brothers, weren't you, for a while?
Huh?
Bowman Brothers.
Didn't I have?
Bowman Brothers.
Bowman.
Oh, yeah. I sold feed with Bowman Brothers.
Where
Out of
was that?
Gaithersburg.
Oh, Gaithersburg.
Yeah.
Okay. So you.
But I covered all these counties, St. Mary, Charles, Carver,
So you
Prince
did
George.
sales,
the sales, yeah.
because you knew all the
Wholesale,
farms.
yeah. I didn't know good at that. I like that, I tell you, really like. Only worked 2 days a week.
Well, in the liquor business, it didn't really change much, did it?
Didn't change much, no.
I used to make jokes to my friends who you know, who you got jobs, Puff and
Puff.
Billy Fitzgerald, Danny Norris, and all of them. I said, you all have the best job in America.
Yeah,
You work 2 days a week and then you're on the golf course the rest of the time.
yeah.
But I think that job has changed now. I think they have to put it at least 4.5.
Yeah.
But you were also a pilot, weren't you?
Yeah, I got a pilot's license. I got an airplane.
Yeah, but how'd you get interested in that as a young man?
Burton job.
Oh, really? Tell me that
When I
story.
was running the Black Steer, he used to come over every day. And he got me interested in it. I got my license. sixties.
That was the first time?
Early sixties, yeah.
Really?
58,
Now, this-
59. Huh?
Before that, I'm pretty sure. Even before that,
50, it was in late fifties.
You mean 1958 or 1959, or when you were 58 and 59?
No, it was back in the probably early, late fifties.
yeah, that's what I
In
said.
the late
Yeah,
1950s?
yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what airport would you use? You just use the one at your house?
Merton had an airport up there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, Baptist Church Road.
Use that
Huh.
for a while till I built my own airport. I can see I got one up there.
Yeah, I remember you had one.
And I got 6 planes up there.
Right now you do? When's the last time you flew?
About a year and a half, 2 years ago. We did. Probably. I tell you, I can go right on.
You love it, don't you?
Love it,
What's the farthest you ever flew from St. Mary's
yeah.
County?
We went to Florida once or twice. And really, that's about as far as I've been.
How about north? Would you ever go north or you just go south?
Never went north much, no.
What was it?
Ocean City, I used to carry people over there. every
Yeah,
year.
yeah, I remember that. Now, so, let me see here. So, what year were you born?
28.
Okay. So, when you were 10 years old, you were really right in the heart of the Depression.
That's right,
Do you remember growing up in the Depression as a kid?
I sure do.
Can you tell people and try to describe what that, what that was like compared to today?
Well, my father was out of the store business and he was home. We was working the farm. It was the three of us, Jimmy, George, Scotty, you know him as Scotty.
Scotty, yeah.
Scotty and myself. We worked the farm with my father. And we had plenty to eat, I can tell you that. But we had to raise it, you know.
Right. Did you all raise tobacco too, or
Yeah,
just?
we had about 40 acres tobacco.
Oh, you did do that too.
Tobacco,
That was a lot of hard work, wasn't it?
man.
What was the population, would you say, like in the, when you were about 12 years old in St. Mary's County?
Oh, I can't remember, but it was.
Before the base?
It grew so fast.
Tell me, when the base came down here, what do you remember, the first thing that you remember when all that happened?
Boy, I remember going in on that base right before they bought it, you know, and, boy, they did.
There was nothing but farms, was it?
Old farms, and the automobile dealership down there too.
Oh, at the Pearson.
Yeah, Pearson.
Now, did you when you worked, in your sales with the Bowmans, did you ever serve that area as well, those farms down in the south part of the
Oh, yeah.
county? Did you serve people with livestock mostly?
St. Mary's County, Charles County, Porter County, Carver County, and part of Prince George's County.
That was a big
And I
town.
do it in 2 days. I get up at about 4 o'clock in the morning and saw that. There was dairy farms that those people got, like, I went over into Memphis, over that area,
Yes.
a lot of dairy farms.
South County.
And they'd get up early, we'd go there at 5 o'clock in the morning, they'd all be up.
Did we have a lot of dairy farms down in St. Mary's back
No,
then?
no.
When did George Clark start his dairy farm?
George.
What would you say?
Oh, I don't know what year he started that.
The 50s maybe?
It was, I believe it was either the late 40s or 50s.
So what happened to you when World War II started? Do you remember where you were when all that happened?
Yeah, we were farming. On the farm.
Were you a teenager then?
Yeah. Yeah, I got on a piece of car and
to have a car was something else,
I
wasn't
had
it?
a car, man, you was ready.
I wonder how much gas was in a gallon?
20, it was 25 cents, I think, when I first started buying it. I think it paid around 25 cents.
Did you have gas at the Hurry store too, or just across the street all the time?
No, Jimmy had a pump over there. He just had it for, some of his friends would
Yeah.
get gas in, get full convenience. But see that station is not on the state. The pump is what's on the state.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Pump on the west side is on the state. The north side pumps are clear.
Okay. And we need to remember that. We need to remember that. Tell me the story, and we'll get into this, about your dad, Donovan. Tell me about that deal that he made with the state, and explain how that road used to be and what happened.
Yeah, well, when they finished that road, the new road, cars were going on both sides of the house. So he cut a great big tree down and put it across the road on the new part that he had given him. And he said, now one of these is going to be shut off. You go out the back door, be coming down one road, you go to the front door, they'd be coming down another road, the other road. So he called it Rhode Island. And it was Rhode Island too. But you know one thing, they said, oh, it take too long. 2 days he had the title back there for the old road.
Okay.
But they brought that old road down and they didn't give that section off that we're working on right now.
Where the pumps are.
Where the pumps are.
And
That was all that's.
do you remember your dad talking about that with you, about the pumps?
No.
Do you remember him ever saying that the state should have given you those pumps, where that section is, or anything like that?
No. I put the station is not on the state.
Yeah, the station is in private hands. It's in your family. It's just the pumps on the west side.
West side pumps.
That's the only thing.
That's the only thing.
And that's what they want you to pay $49,000 for.
That's right.
So it's your intention that we try to do a swap,
Yeah.
an even swap. Is that what your intention is? Okay.
Well, I'll even pay them something. I don't know.
Well, we'll see how they come.
They come up.
But we want to get a letter together, explain the history as best we can, and we want to get that. Now, were you raised Catholic or Episcopal? Catholic. Where'd you go to church when you were young?
Our Lady of the Wayside.
Our Lady of the Wayside.
Sometimes St. Joseph. Sometimes another town, because my wife was from over here.
What was her maiden name?
Greenwood.
Oh, okay.
You know, Barrels live there.
Oh,
Jim Green's.
Jimmy Green.
Jim Green's.
About it,
You know the son, don't you?
Yeah.
Jeff, Frank,
600 cousins on that.
nice people.
what they called it, tobacco Jim, didn't they?
Huh?
Tobacco Jim, isn't that what they called?
Tobacco Jim.
That was your father-in-law?
Yeah.
Tobacco Jim?
Tobacco Jim.
Tell me where his farms were.
Down there with that half-ass Donkey Farm, they got a sign up there that says half-ass Donkey. Back up in there. You got a farm. You got a farm up in
And is that where your wife was raised?
there. No,
Oh,
she was raised out here in this big house, Buena Vista.
yeah. Is that where Dickie and Daffrin and
No,
those Greenwells
they
were?
were raised at Meadows Neck.
Oh, Miller's Neck, okay.
That was, I can't think of that farm. I know it real well.
But they, your wife was raised right in Leonardtown.
She was raised in Buena Vista, right there in Leonardtown.
Yeah. was Leonardtown like when you were a teenager? How would you describe it?
Much in there, really. Kenny Abel, he was my big buddy.
He was,
He was my friend,
when you were growing up.
yeah.
You guys used to pal around together?
Yeah. Kenny.
What'd you guys do? What was Friday night for you?
Wasn't much to do. We used to go to the movies and something like that, but wasn't much you could do back in those days. Go to a restaurant to eat, maybe, or something like that.
There was a lot of bar rooms in town, wasn't there?
Well, 2 or 3 of them in town, yeah.
Uncle Dick, Dick
Uh-huh.
Norris, Dick Norris
Dick Norris
had one in the back of the hardware store. Yeah, but he had ball in the back.
He had a little speakeasy back
Yeah,
there.
in the back. Yeah.
So now how is he related to you?
Aunt Betty.
Huh?
Aunt Betty was grandmother Greenwell's sister, is that right? Betty Norris.
Yeah.
Because Phil, Mathia, and Francis, they were my babysitters. You know that.
Yes.
But I remember walking in there as a kid, they had that little, speakeasy in the back of the hardware store.
Yeah, well,
And
everybody-
nuts and bolts and Irish whiskey.
Yeah, the regular customers every day that come in
Yeah, that was something else. So what was a big drinking hole over the 7th back then? Where was
there.
it?
Old God.
At Old Gum.
They used to drink and fight.
I had Leonard Copps in that chair, and I asked him. I said, how old is your crab house? He goes, mine's the second oldest. The first oldest was Captain Sam's over on White Neck Creek. And I didn't know that. I thought that was
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
You think that's right? You remember going over there for crabs? When you
Oh,
were-
yeah, I used to go there. But I don't know what to say.
But the county back in the 40s and 50s was chock full of watermen and tobacco farmers, wasn't it? It was just farmers.
That's right.
That's how people made a living back then. Things have really changed, haven't they?
Captain Sam's, pretty old, he might have been older than the other one. Had been there as long as I can remember.
You mean the crab house on the creek,
Crab House on
at
the
White Neck Creek?
Yeah.
You remember it as a kid as
Oh,
well?
yeah, we used to go there.
How about Frank Ass's store down at Coles Point? Was that always there when you were growing up?
Yeah, Frank went in there. Yeah. I think he passed away, didn't he? I think he did.
And, but what about Anderson's? What was there back in the 40s?
It was grazing cattle,
Yeah, I think
So there really was nothing there.
That
It
was
just
old,
a
that was part of the
part of
farm.
the farm.
yeah, part of the farm.
When was that built right there?
That was before the station, wasn't it?
Who?
Was it built before the station was built?
Yeah, the built before the fuel station.
So it must have been in the late 40s or something, mid-late 40s?
So he married what, your sister?
Sister Lucy.
Lucy.
Yeah.
Is she still living?
No, she did. I only have, so one more living in my family in Virginia.
Right.
She's a retired school teacher.
Now, your other sister moved down to Valley Lee, didn't she?
Betty,
Betty?
moved out of
Russell
here.
Store.
Tell me the history of that.
Bailey Russell married her, Bailey.
Yes. But where was he from, Bailey Russell?
Bailey from Valley.
From Valley Lee, okay.
That was in that Hobbs family.
Yeah, tell me about
Remember
that. No, tell me about that Hobbs family.
Well, it's something like the Dorsey Stone family, those old family.
Yeah.
You know, You don't want to.
Well, I'm trying to. It's tough to keep up with that stuff. But, so Bailey Russell, I
Married my
wonder
sister.
if his mother was a Bailey, and how he got that name, and what Bailey he was from, where he was from.
They was from Valley Lee originally.
And was Betty's husband named Bailey?
Yeah.
Bailey Russell?
She
And,
bought that store. Still in the family, her daughter's running.
Tricky,
Trigger and,
Roger the
Yeah.
third.
yeah.
So, okay, now let me get this straight. What was it there when she bought it? What was there?
It was an old store.
It was just a country
An
store.
old country store. Yeah. George Hard had bought it.
Oh, he had bought
He had bought it. And then Bailey bought it from George Hard.
it. And was it a bar room or just a country store?
It was
Both.
It was both. It
Okay.
was a country store and a bar.
Because country stores back in the 40s and 50s and 60s were like your living room. That's where you got all the news in the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
That's where people gathered.
That's right.
You didn't have to worry about all this nonsense about
Yeah.
getting caught for having 2 beers.
Well, they had one in every community,
Yeah.
still want a bar. I mean,
But what, so they had the Bailey, they had Betty Russell's, but that was her, she ran it. They didn't name it Bailey Russell, they named it Betty Russell.
it's the same thing as the bar.
Huh?
It's the same thing as this bar. Aunt Lucy ran Anderson's bar.
Right.
I mean, Robert wasn't over there.
Right.
He was out messing around with horses.
That's from the horse.
Well, your family really knew something about commerce. They knew how to run, an operation.
Yeah, well, see, now, my father had a store in Crossroads.
Okay, is that in PG County or Charles?
That's in St. Mary's, right there, above Clemens. You turn and go back in there.
Hurry,
Oh,
Maryland.
by Maddox.
Hurry, Maryland.
That's her brother.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
what
tell me
he
about
Yeah,
that.
store back there. Big, great, big, huge store.
I never knew that.
Yeah, it used to
Yeah,
be
they-
Hurry. On the old
they
maps, you
ran
can see it. It's the name Hurry, right at Crossroads.
He bought a piece of land at Clemens, and he built that store in 1907.
This was your grandfather,
My father,
or your father, Donald.
my father died.
But Donlin built a store in Clements in 1907. But before that, it was his store or his father's store at Crossroads?
It was his store. He had 2 of them, but his other brother, he had another brother.
Who was it, Buck?
Buck. His name was Buck.
Buckhurst.
Bucker, yeah. He ran that store at Crossroads.
Is that on Hurry Road?
Yeah.
Okay.
You went to Latham Wills store?
Yes.
Right there on that crossroads.
Okay. Whatever happened to that store? Because I've never seen a picture of that.
No, there's a house built down there. It's an old store, fell down after he died. And quit running it.
When do you think it was the last year that he was in operation? What would you say?
Probably in his store business, probably back in the 30s.
Up through the 30s.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Early 30s.
When it burnt, though, they lost when it burnt, they lost the post office. So the name of the town disappeared too, because the post office disappeared.
So they had an actual post office called Hurry, Maryland,
Yep.
with its own zip code,
Right.
right there at the country
Right,
store.
right at that
So when
crossroads.
that burned down, there went the zip code.
Yep.
They switched it either to Chaptico or Clemens
Had split it probably half and
or
half,
wherever.
Yeah.
or Maddox, or whatever.
Now, did you tell me your father was raised in Clemens too?
Pretty well, yeah.
And what was,
Between Harry, Maryland, and Clemency.
yeah. Now, what was your grandfather's name or your
I
father's
don't
son?
have any idea.
What was, your grandmother? You remember her?
No,
Do you remember your grandfather?
no. No. My mother was a railer.
Oh, she was a Rayleigh.
She was a railer.
And now, is that from the 7th or the 1st of,
From over that way, over there.
that way be 7th?
Clemens.
Oh, Clemens. And all I can think of is like Allie Rayleigh and,
They are related to us.
yeah. did you meet your wife?
Made she in another time.
At the movie theater? Did they have a movie theater back then?
Oh, yeah, they had, I think it was 2 theaters running there.
Didn't they have one in
One
the
right
old IGA right
there.
downtown?
Yeah, that was a theater.
That was a theater.
That was a theater with Kenneth.
Kenneth Duke.
But he really went upstairs on the top of Duke's, see,
Yeah.
all the time. Then the new theater came to town. It was,
That's why they call it the
it was,
New.
well, there was 2 of them at one time here.
Now, I remember as a kid bowling on top of Duke's. Do you remember when that first came in? Tell me about that.
Yeah, we used to go up there bowling, me and Jimmy and Scotty. We used to go up there.
When you were growing up.
They had these color boys sitting up
Pins.
there. And when we'd come in there, and color boys would disappear, they wouldn't set up pins for us.
For the Hurry Boys.
Because Scotty, when he threw the ball out through that wagon, he'd break the pins right up. Wood would fly. I remember that, them boys would despair when we went in there.
Oh, Scotty, he's a good man.
I believe Mr. Peabody would run there one time.
Whoa, the bowling alley?
Yeah.
Eleanor Peabody?
Yeah.
I didn't
She
know
was
that.
out there one time, yeah.
Really? Her husband was a general, wasn't he?
John
Hugh Peabody?
Who?
Lived up in Chapticot.
Yes.
And I think she tried to make sure everybody got either a bed a new bed in the hospital or an air conditioner, maybe both.
Yeah, she looked out for everybody.
That was a big thing. So, I think that's about all we're going to do today.
All right.
You think it's something you want to talk about, I want you to come back and we'll do it again.
Yeah.
Had a fascinating run there, Phil. You were good friends with my grandfather, weren't you?
Yeah.
How come you guys were such good friends? Or how come your dad and you were good buddies?
I don't know, politics.
You all had similar
Yeah.
views.
You know, one year, the next year you go the other way.
You guys sort of looked out for each
They
other.
look out for each other.
Nobody else would. That's interesting.
Yeah. He used to come by Clements, stop getting gas. He'd go in the same district. He'd stay down there for a week. I'd finally have to go down and get his car carried over to him.
Now, was this my father or my grandfather?
My grandfather.
Right, yeah. Both were similar. I guess where I must get that from.
Well, I was close to your father too.
Yeah, I know you were. So, well, of course, he married my mother from down at Colton's Point, so I'm sure that he'd get tied up down there and
Yeah,
go
he'd
from
stay down there for a week
place to place.
or 2 or 3 weeks, make a difference to him.
No. Oh,
Great man.
that's how things were, you know.
Yeah.
Things were sort of wide open. Things have changed a lot in the county, don't you
Oh
think?
my goodness, yeah.
Have they gotten better or worse, or what do you think about the whole situation? Are times better now, or are times, do people,
Well, things are better, yeah.
do people, you think people help their neighbor like they do back when you were growing up?
No, you had none of that.
A lot of people keep
You
to
know,
themselves.
most of farming back in those days, they didn't do much of anything,
Right.
but just farming,
Raise their kids, raise their
raise
crops.
the kids, have something for them to do, you know.
Right. Well, Phil, I thank you. And now we're going to cut that